with that. Get to the cause in a moment. I was telling you about the book, and it's not a criticism, but it's not a long book. And what it says is interesting. Could you not, though, have framed the points of your argument without almost, I think, and forgive me if I'm wrong, seeking controversy? Could you not have said, and I would agree with you on this, that I think there's far too much garbage written about the Holocaust, to the point where people said, I don't want to read that anymore. The wonderful books, the wonderful movies, yes, but there's too much, and I believe that is exploitation. I think people say, what do we do here? Let's put in a movie about the Holocaust. Wrong. Right. It's too deep. The suffering is too deep for that. We could agree on that. We could say that certainly people have said if you criticize Israel, some people, you're an anti-Semite. Absolutely irresponsible talk. You can say yes or no to Israel. There are anti-Semites who hate Israel, but very decent people always have criticisms. Fair enough. We could agree on that. That maybe certain aspects of compensation have not been what they should be. You seem, though, instead of taking these positions and saying, let's talk about them, you wrap them in so much else and throw this package around, which is why people get so terribly upset. You seem to include everyone in your condemnation. Any regrets about doing that?
Not at all, because, as I said at the beginning, I take this matter very seriously. I lived my entire life with the suffering that my parents endured, and which stayed with them till the end of their life. And I do strongly believe, at the risk of sounding self-righteous and pious, that that memory deserves something better than what's been made of it. Even Jews joke among themselves. I'm sure you're aware that the Hebrew word for the Nazi Holocaust is Shoah. And the most common joke among Jews is to say there's no business like Shoah business.
Not the most common joke. It is a comment that could be made. But again, you've done it again. You've just said the most common joke among Jews. Most Jewish people have never made such a joke.
No, but everybody has heard it. And I think it's deeply regrettable that you should in any way be joking about it. I ask you a simple question. Do you think Japanese joke about Hiroshima? I really doubt it.
Actually, I have heard Japanese people joke, because humor is a form of release. It's a catharsis.
This is not a form of release. I accept that.
You asked me a question. I replied to the best of my ability.
Right, but this is not a form of release. It's an acknowledgement that something has become almost contemptible. And that's something different. You know, when I read in the papers each year, when the Japanese want to commemorate Hiroshima, they have little lanterns sailing down the river, and then they release a flock of doves. That reveals sensitivity.
Oh, please.
I think so.
Sir, I'm from Britain. I have an uncle who is still waiting for compensation for being tortured half to death in a Japanese camp. The Japanese government,
their own tragedy.
Yes, but
I'm not saying how they treat others.
But
their
you see,
own
again,
tragedy.
With due respect, bad history. The Japanese Hiroshima was appalling. The reason there were two bombs is because after the first one, the Japanese government in Tokyo refused to surrender. But they have the Japanese government, not the people, has used that tragedy to get away with the guilt they shoulder for the terrible torture of British, Dutch, Chinese, Korean, American.
I'm not going to deny that. I was referring to the sensitivity they display to their own tragedy.
I wonder if it is. I wonder if it's sensitivity or something. And we could talk about compensation there, because as you know, that there are men who've died in poverty who just simply wanted a little bit of compensation or acknowledgement from...
I'm for compensation.
You know. Let's go some more calls. Let's go to Erica on line 6. Hello, Erica.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. I just wanted to say, you sort of took the words out of my mouth just a while ago when you said that in as far as shows about the Holocaust and movies and Movie of the Week and documentary winning and, you know, Academy Award winners, it is getting a bit tiresome, and it's like, oh, here we go again, another show about the Holocaust. And but the thing is, at the same time in the world, we've got all these other issues going on that are just treated as day-to-day news, and you know, we forget about all the other stuff because, oh, Jesus, it's a Movie of the Week about the Holocaust.
Well, Erica, that's not what I said at all. And again, you've got to be very careful when speaking about an issue as sensitive as this. I said that the great movies and great books about the Holocaust are wonderful, but there's too much third-rate mediocrity stuff just to fill time, and I think that shames But what you've just done is a very good example. You've said no one cares about the other issues because there's another movie about the Holocaust. You've mixed a colour with a shape, as it were. We don't not talk about certain issues because we talk about the Holocaust instead. We don't talk about certain issues because we're not a fair and just world. We don't talk about, say, suffering in the developing world because we'd rather raise money for little kittens and puppies because they look cute on TV. For goodness sake, don't use the Holocaust as that isn't the reason for the injustice and lack of media coverage of events in the world.
Yes, but I do think, as your caller suggests, there is a problem with the amount of investment that's been made in this film, scholarship, and so on in the Nazi Holocaust versus the investment that's been made in other fields. As I pointed out in I'll give a very simple example. As some of your viewers may be aware, between 1891 and 1911, approximately 10 to 15 million Belgian Congolese in the Belgian Congo were killed in the course of Belgium's exploitation of the Congo's rubber and ivory resources. Now, 10 to 15 million people is plainly not a trivial number. It's roughly the number that were killed in all of World War I. Now, would you believe that in the English language, there is exactly one scholarly study on what came out a couple of years ago. It was called by Adam Hochschild. The name will come to me in a moment. Just give me a half second. But there's one study on the Nazi Holocaust. The conservative figure is 10,000.
You don't know anything about me, nor should you. But you do know I wrote a major biography of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You're aware of that?
Yeah, and I know Arthur Conan Doyle was one of the individuals who called, incidentally, what happened in the Belgian Congo.
He said it was the most
ghastly crime in the history of humankind.
I've read more than one book about what happened. Just simply wrong.
No. In the English language, King Leopold's Ghost. In the English language, I can assure you, because I've written on the topic and I've read everything on the subject, in the English language...
I'll lend you the books.
No, the only scholarly study was written by Adam Hochschild, King Leopold's Ghost, 2 years ago. That's
the most recent.
There were, at the time, there was a huge international campaign initiated by E.D. Morrell, and one of the people who he recruited was Arthur Conan Doyle, and he wrote his first-hand journalistic accounts of what was happening in the early part of the 20th century. There is only one scholarly study in the English language. But the interesting thing is the comparison.
I'm going to send them back because I want them. I'm going to send these books to you. It's simply...
The comparison
I don't know what to say.
On the Nazi Holocaust, the conservative figure is 10,000. 1 to 10,000. That's astonishing.
Do we have to apologize? I mean, on that, and I will show you that you're wrong, I will send you the books, and I think it's a wild statement. But do we have to apologize that Jewish people write books about a period of suffering in their history? Now, I could argue with you, for example, that the pogroms, my family came to Britain from Poland during the pogroms, 1890 to 1905, are not very well covered. There are very few good, there's some, but not enough. But so the Holocaust is covered. There's so much footage, so much coverage of it. I don't see the point you're making.
Well, the point is, objectively, it diminishes the sufferings of others.
Okay.
And I think that's a problem. I think 10 to 15 million Congolese people deserve more than one book in the library.
I agree, a lot more, which is why they have more than one, but there should be a lot more. Anyway, we'll get to the rest of the calls when we come back. Conan Doyle was a spiritualist. Maybe he'll come back here to tell us the real truth. See you in a couple of moments.